Testing. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Housing Equity Candidate Forum for the City of Kirkland. As we gather this evening to focus on housing and community, we begin by recognizing the first people who called this region their home. Please join me in acknowledging the many Coast Salish tribes, including the Duwamish and the Snoqualmie, for their leadership and ongoing care of this unceded land. May our conversations and actions reflect a shared responsibility to build inclusive, rooted, and respectful futures together. Thank you to the candidates for being here and to everyone for joining us tonight. All candidates were invited to attend this forum, which is meant as a resource for voters in the upcoming 2025 general election. In alphabetical order, we are joined tonight by the following candidates: Mr. Jay Arnold, Mr. Neil Black, Mr. Kurt Bresner, and Mrs. Shilpa Payne. We regret to share that candidate Malik and candidate Pascal canceled after previously confirming. This evening is brought to you by the Eastside Housing Equity Coalition, which includes Indian American Community Services, Eastside for All, the Housing Development Consortium, and the Muslim Community Network Association. My name is Ashwin Rao, and I will be your moderator this evening. As someone who grew up on the East Side, I often reminisce with my friends about how fortunate we were that we happened to have parents who worked in tech in the 90s when they could still afford to buy homes and start families here. That privilege gave us fantastic opportunities and set us on a glide path to happiness and success. Sadly, that has become a privilege that is unaffordable for many families today. Access to this incredible city shouldn't depend on winning the genetic lottery like I did. It should be something that's available for everyone. So hopefully we can discuss some solutions for that today. To get started, I will pose questions to each candidate, alternating who answers first. To keep things fair, we ask that all candidates stay within the allotted response time for each question. To help with time management, we have our timekeeper, Jess. She will indicate when there is 15 seconds and no time left for each response. The questions have been curated by the organizers based on their issues that the communities have prioritized. This is not a debate format, so there will not be rebuttals today. Okay? For those in attendance, we invite you to share your takeaways from tonight with your families and friends, and we would appreciate your feedback as well. Please use the QR code on the registration table to share your impressions and thoughts. Okay. So let's begin with introductions. Please share a little bit about yourself, the position you're running for, and why you decided to run for office at this time. We will each have 30 seconds, and we will begin with Mr. Arnold.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Arnold. I'm running for re-election at council position number 1. I'm running because we have more work to do to make Kirkland more affordable, connected, and sustainable. And we need to protect our values as a safe, welcoming, inclusive community. I moved to Kirkland 35 years ago, living in an apartment in Totem Lake. My wife and I have been fortunate to be able to buy a house in Kirkland and raise a family here. We want our kids to have the same opportunities that I did.
Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Neil Black. You elected me in 2019 and again in 2021. I hope you'll have me back in 2025. In 2019, I ran largely on housing affordability and community-based behavioral health and also just principles of good governance. I'm running again because although we've accomplished a lot, I think there's still a lot more that we can do. Unrelated to my work on the council, I'm also working on housing as a member of the Board of Trustees of the King County Bar Association, who oversees the Housing Justice Project, and I was also recently appointed to the King County Housing Authority. So I work on housing in other areas as well. Thanks.
All right, hi everyone, good evening. I first want to very quickly thank HDC, MCNA, Eastside for All, and INCS for putting this on. This is actually a really important topic right now. I can tell you it's on everybody's mind. Every endorsement questionnaire I filled out had a housing question on it, at least one. So the important thing to remember though is that talk is cheap, and it's really important to figure out which candidates actually understand that the increasing unaffordability of housing is actually a problem for everyone in our region. I decided to run because handling complex regions or complex issues like this requires trust and leadership, and that's what I'm going to bring.
Hi, I'm Shilpa Cram. I'm running for Kirkland City Council, position number 3. I'm running because I care deeply about the kind of community we're building. I love the city, and want to ensure Kirkland remains a vibrant place for everyone, including my kiddos, seniors, and everyone in between. One thing I realized is that in order to make this happen, you really do need to have people that can make thoughtful, common sense decisions, and I believe I can bring that to the table. I look forward to having a deeper discussion with all of you today, and thank you so much for coming.
You all. Okay, so our first question this evening will be on the subject of communities. Living a healthy life is about more than just having affordable and stable housing. It also includes access to useful transit options with efficiency and frequency, varied businesses and amenities, recreational spaces, job opportunities, and trust in local institutions. So the first question is, what factors or elements do you believe are most critical to build and sustain holistic, complete communities that are equitable and responsive to a variety of resident and worker needs? We each have 60 seconds for this question, and first up is Mr. Black.
Thank you. So complete communities is a touchstone of mine. It's something I've been focused on during my entire time on the council. Step one is more homes at all price points. Step two is a greater mix of smaller, more affordable housing types. And Kirkland doesn't build housing, so we are creating the framework in which we're fostering that kind of creation of those more homes and those greater mix of smaller, affordable homes. I also believe that one tenet of this has to be funding that involves the preservation and the creation of deeply affordable homes. That's always going to be a challenge in an economic community, community like ours that's situated so favorably economically. And then last thing is mobility. We have to invest in mobility infrastructure that gets people where they want to go and need to go, speedy and reliable, including public transit. And that includes families and individuals who are transit dependent. That all has to come together.
Next up, we have Mr. Crescent.
All right, so I'm going to echo something that Neil said, which is the complete communities is one of the issues that I think about all the time. It's one of the reasons I founded my community group, Equitable Kirkland, was to focus on complete community. And there are really two sides to complete community for me. And the side that Neil didn't talk about is the one that makes sure that residents can meet their routine needs without necessarily having to travel to other cities. And that sounds like, okay, well, what does that have to do with equity? Well, to have those jobs, to have those grocery stores, that medical care, the child care, the schools and stuff, you need to have the people who stock the shelves at that grocery store, and you need to have the medical assistants that are taking your blood pressure at your doctor's appointment, and the teachers that are teaching your kids. Like, those folks need to be able to be a part of your community and have those amenities in your community. So I agree with Neil, we need to make sure we have more homes and more types of homes, give people the choice of what works for them, allows them to have the stability to build a life for themselves. That's more than just commuting an hour each way in soul-sucking traffic.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mrs. Green.
I agree with both Neil and Kurt. And, I see complete communities as places where people can live, work, play, relax, all in an area that's drivable, that's walkable, quick drive, like a 5-minute drive maximum. This means more walkable neighborhoods with housing options for all income levels, access to transit, schools, parks, childcare, and small businesses right within reach. As a council member, I'll steer growth to prioritize places where people can connect. That includes supporting mixed-use developments, safer pedestrian and bike infrastructure, and zoning that encourages corner stores, clinics. I frankly would love to be able to get up in the morning, walk to a coffee shop, walk my kids to school, and then maybe walk to work. If I could have all of that, it would be a dream come true. It would remove the commuting problem, which honestly is a huge quality of life issue, which I think we need to prioritize.
Thank you. And Mr. Arnold.
Thank you. Complete communities have housing that's available at all ages and stages of life. They allow for when you work in Kirkland, you should have the opportunity and the options to live in Kirkland. They include parks and places and neighborhood grocery stores, favorite local businesses and restaurants, ideally within walking distance of where you live. Neighborhoods are walkable and bikeable. They're connected to each other in the region through frequent, reliable transit. Now, critical to this is that we're developing at scale. Our vision for the 85th Street Station area is for housing and jobs near bus rapid transit that's going to be coming on 405. We need to turn that into the next version of total lane. At a smaller scale, our neighborhood shopping centers are an important element. Many of these are 80s era strip malls that are ripe for redevelopment, where we can add housing, make them mixed use, and protect neighborhood grocery stores with transportation and transit.
Mr. Arnold, please speak more into the mic.
Sure.
Thank you.
So communities don't become complete and connected by accident. We believe it is difficult, perhaps impossible, to meet complex community needs without listening, authentic partnership, and empowerment of the groups most impacted. So the next question is, how would you seek out and utilize input and partnerships to empower Black, Brown, and Indigenous community members to make decisions that promote this vision? And you each have 60 seconds, starting with Mr. President.
Sure. So, I mean, the first step is showing up. And it means, participating in a community engagement process. It also means making sure that that community engagement process is actually representative of our city. We need to be hearing from everyone. And not everybody has the time to go down to City Hall on a Tuesday night and wait, 3 hours to speak their 3 minutes in a public hearing. Our public engagement process needs to be more robust. It needs to be more ongoing. It needs to start earlier. We need to make sure we're getting a good cross-section of our community. And I'm actually really encouraged by what the city has been doing to try to accomplish that, making sure that we have engagement meetings that are hybrid, so folks can join from their homes, paying stipends to participants so that folks who otherwise wouldn't be able to participate can participate. Even exploring offering childcare to folks so that we can hear from everyone, even people who normally don't show up. It's really important to get those perspectives. And then where possible, we also need to be actively going into those BIPOC communities and meeting folks where they actually are. And last, we need to make sure we're talking about these issues in ways that people can actually understand. You shouldn't have to be a policy wonk to participate.
I will work on building trust through authentic and consistent relationships. And the nice thing is, I feel like I have a pretty decent personality in order to do that. And what I mean really is partnering with grassroots leaders, holding listening sessions, and making sure that community voices are not just heard, but really drive the work. Also note that a lot of people don't know what City Council does. I will want to attend some already existing events, like the Washington Indian Association, for example, or some of the more diverse bar association events, and set up a table and talk to people that are walking by to talk about what City Council does and how people can get involved. At the end of the day, the more diverse our input is, the better suited our solutions are really going to be for everyone.
Thank you.
Kirkland's historical outreach methods don't get input from all residents. For example, from census data, we know that 43% of Kirklanders are renters, 39% are races other than white, 29% were not born in this country. That's why City Council directed staff to broaden our outreach and specifically mention Black people and people of color. This happens through tactics like focus groups, specific outreach, and participation in programs like Promotorics. Kirkland has been certified as a welcoming city, the first city in Washington to do so, recognizing this commitment to inclusion. It is a challenge to reach people where they are, especially without local journalism. Kirkland just published a city newspaper that goes to all residents with key issues and how to get involved. We're also expanding social media channels and the outreach tools that we're using so that things aren't tied to time and place to get info.
So show up, get out, and don't be a bad friend. So show up and get out means you have to get out into the community, and you have to get out as a leader. You have to get out beyond your own neighborhood and just the people that are part of your neighborhood. If you're going to lead the city of Kirkland, you need to be a representative of the entire city of Kirkland and every neighborhood in Kirkland. So showing up and getting out, that's one. Doing the work is things like the regional work. We come down for some criticism from time to time for being as involved as we are as city leaders in regional work, but that's where we're coming into contact with all the ideas and all the thoughts and concerns about that we're hearing from around the region from different groups. And it also requires a concerted effort to meet with leaders who represent the people of color and indigenous communities. And you can't be a bad friend. Don't show up only when you're asking for something. It's constant contact, constant relationship building.
Thank you. Our next question is about displacement. There's a clear connection between community health and the ability of people to stay in place. Stability helps people deepen relationships, keep consistent schooling for their children, and age in place. As housing costs continue to escalate across the East Side, it is becoming harder for individuals and families to stay in place. This need has become so salient that Kirkland's comprehensive plan now identifies several policies to address anti-displacement and community stability. Specifically, Kirkland has policy H-228 to keep people in their homes by developing strategies to plan for and respond to displacement pressures from rising rents and home prices, especially for households making 80% AMI or less. So the question is, which policies do you support or oppose that would enable Black, Brown, and Indigenous community members to stay in our rapidly growing and increasingly expensive neighborhoods? We'll each have 60 seconds starting with Mrs. Bay.
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about displacement, we really have to look at two sides of the coin, which is one is for renters and the other buyers. So for renters, displacement happens when wages are not rising as fast as rents are. And recently the state did pass a 10% cap on rents to stabilize the rent. But given kind of the newness of this law, I would want to make sure and look at the impacts of this law. Are more people being housed or not? And I think only time will tell. And if adjustments are needed, adjustments should be made. And then, and also I want to see if the law is stifling development, because I do think that the last thing we want to do is stop developing more affordable homes. And then when it comes to home buyers, especially first time or individuals that want to age in place, the challenge is access. Rising home prices and limited inventory are pushing people out of our communities. To address this, I support deferring on property taxes for some homes, reducing the risk of developing condominiums, and zoning reforms that allow more townhouses and condos near transit jobs.
Well, to make Kirkland more affordable to live here and stay here, it really starts with supply. And in addition to the overall target of homes that we're planning for the future, we have specific targets to provide homes available at different incomes. For income levels for our teachers, healthcare workers, retail, and restaurant staff, much of the housing is going to be apartments. And as we look at how we provide those apartments, we want to make sure that there is spaces affordable for working families. And beyond that, we need to incentivize smaller homes to provide those opportunities to stay in Kirkland. You mentioned the comprehensive plan policies that we'll be looking at for supporting equitable home ownership and preventing displacement. And more importantly, the universal design that allows people to stay in place as they grow older. I think that's going to be an important standard to develop and adopt. We also have an opportunity of what the city does directly, and that's partnerships like Hope Village, where we can do housing, community space, and nonprofit space like that, together centered around.
This is a big question to try to cover in 60 seconds. That's why we're all racing through it. This question has in it a presumption that the individuals and families that we're talking about here and that we're trying to serve, that housing is unattainable for them in Kirkland, or growing more and more unattainable. So at its bottom, this is ultimately a socioeconomic question. And so I would address this with our complete community strategy, because our complete community strategy is a strategy to make Kirkland more affordable and attainable to more people at all different incomes. So it's everything from those more homes at all price points. It's a greater mix of smaller homes, like Deputy Mayor Arnold was just talking about. It is that funding for the preservation and the creation of deeply affordable housing, which includes subsidies and things like Regional Coalition for Housing efforts. So it's multiple parallel strategies to make housing more attainable. Ensure also equal access to housing justice. and allow more people to actually remain in their house. That's the most important thing, keeping people in their homes so they don't become homeless. Thanks.
All right, agreed to 60 seconds. It's too short to cover this, so I'm just going to say I want to echo a lot of the things that I just heard, but for specific policies, I want to say let's make sure to be discouraging redevelopment that requires renter displacement. There's plenty of stuff that we can redevelop that won't displace anyone. We should be focusing our efforts there. Or in the cases where we do have to redevelop something that's going to displace renters, we should do it the way that King County Housing Authority is doing it with the Kirkland Heights project, where they are doing it incrementally, bit by bit, so that we displace the fewest amount of people, right? They replace one building, move everybody into that building, then replace another building, instead of just evicting everyone and doing one big construction project. We should require transparency from voluntary tenant buyouts. That's another one where people kind of get taken for a ride and wind up, giving up their affordable living situation. We should be prioritizing displaced tenants for affordable housing placement, and we should be adding more multifamily housing in our neighborhood centers, because it doesn't just allow more folks to live in our neighborhoods, it also puts them close to the services they need, which can reduce the reliance on driving and further saving them money.
All right, thank you. Our next question is about the finances. So the returns from low-income housing development are usually not high enough to incentivize traditional banking institutions and housing developers to finance and build these units, despite the community need for below-market housing. Subsidy is often necessary to address the lack of availability of below-market housing. A single new housing development often uses 5 or more different types of competitive funding from federal, state, regional, local, and private sources. Governments at all levels have many avenues to collect revenue for affordable housing, including taxes, levies, and fees. In particular, local funding might make it possible for new developments to be competitive when applying for state and federal grants to fund affordable community housing. So the question is, what new or expanded local revenue sources would you support for affordable housing development, operation, and community services? Please be as specific as possible. And you'll each have 60 seconds, starting with Mr. Arnold.
Well, the progress that we're making in this area today with affordable housing and permanent supportive housing is happening regionally and in partnership. The county has dedicated funds that they can use for these purposes, and hometown corporations like Amazon and Microsoft are stepping up with their housing funds. Now, any new local revenue that we're talking about needs to avoid the property tax and the sales tax that are regressive. One option the city has supported is an incremental additional tax on real estate sales of housing. I think this should be on larger homes and get progressively higher with more expensive mega houses. I also think the state should share revenue from the progressive tax sources it has, like the capital gains tax, with cities and counties. Because we can't take new revenue that's going to housing and use our traditional revenue sources that make it tougher for working families and tougher to build housing.
So thank you. I agree with a lot of what Deputy Mayor Arnold just said. I think it's a little bit of the wrong way to look at it as what local sources of revenue we can use to subsidize affordable housing. I think what we need to look at our tax structure as a whole and make sure it's serving us all as a community. And that it reflects our values as a people, and that it's fair and reasonable and predictable and sustainable. If we were to do that, we would have the funds, fungible funds within our general fund to do some of the housing work. So I'm not necessarily focused on new sources of local revenue for this work. I'm looking for to work on a more fair and equitable tax system across the board. But the REIT increment that Deputy Mayor Arnold mentioned, I think, is an important one. And again, I would like to see it not apply to houses under a certain value when sold, but houses above a certain value when sold, and that increment would help fund some of these subsidized housing projects that we need, especially in a city like Kirkland. Thanks.
All right, so historically, our inclusionary zoning requirement has only applied to multifamily housing, which makes the cheapest kind of housing we can build more expensive. Recently, the City Council voted to close what we call the McMansion loophole, which basically says, if you make a big, single-family home, you don't have to pay, you don't have to provide any sort of affordability. So that means that developers building large single-family homes have to play by the same rules as those building more affordable multifamily. Which not only levels the playing field, but it's also projected to generate more revenue for affordable housing than any other city program. And coincidentally, my opponent is the only one who voted against it. I'm also very interested in transferable development rights, which isn't exactly a new source of revenue, but it does allow a property owner who doesn't want to add developments to sell those development rights to a different property owner who can put that development on their property where maybe it fits better or it's more advantageous to build there. And this also can allow us to prevent displacement and preserve more of our natural affordable housing and also our urban forests, which are all things that we want to preserve. So.
First, I think we can strengthen our partnership with Arch and really look at how much we're investing, what our current contributions are, and see if they're adequate or not. If not, then we should adjust. On the development side, we should incentivize builders by expediting for permitting and reducing fees for projects that do include affordable housing. As we're updating zoning, we should make sure that inclusionary zoning requirements are super clear and consistent and pair the tools like in-lieu fees so that if a developer feels that the addition of affordable housing is not penciling out, they have an option and we're getting the community benefit that we want to get. And finally, Kirkland should continue to be a leader in partnering with profit and not-for-profit organizations. As an example, Amazon provided a $12.5 million interest-free loan to Kirkland, where they were able to build an apartment complex of 125 units, affordable units, which I think was great. And I think we should continue to look into partnerships like that.
Thank you. The need for affordable housing also includes those who make low or no income and require supportive services and specific help. And this need for supportive housing and services often exceeds what currently exists in our Eastside cities. So there'll be 2 questions for this. We'll get 30 seconds for each. The first question is, how will you navigate strong public opinion against new revenue and the use of funds for low-income housing or homelessness responses? So 30 seconds, starting with Mr. Black.
When you have strong public opinion against something, you need to listen to folks, find out where you have shared values. You don't have to share every one of the values to the exact same degree. Do we want to reduce traffic? Do we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Do we want to have a reliable workforce? Any of those shared values would lead us to share an interest in some of this upfront spending that will ultimately save costs in the long run, and that's the most important element.
Yeah, I want to echo what Neil said, that in a lot of ways, we've historically been a little penny-wise, pound-foolish on this, that making those investments up front, it pays dividends. And so when I hear people say, oh, we can't do that because we can't afford it, we can't afford not to do it. We're going to be paying it on the other end, when we're paying for emergency room visits and dispatching police and putting people in jails or hospitals, or all of those things are way more expensive. And so getting folks to understand that through a very robust public engagement process, as Neil was saying, I think is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I echo that. I do recognize that people have very strong feelings on all sides on how to deal with these very complex issues. I do plan on creating scenarios where we have real conversations face-to-face, not just public comment, where people can ask questions and share concerns. And, at the same time, I'll lead with facts. Supportive housing has proven, just like what Kurt was saying, to not just be the compassionate thing to do, but it makes financial sense. You were talking about the ER visits. Like King County did a study where permanent housing was implemented, and the ER visits went down by 17%. The hospital stays went down by 23%. So those are tax dollars saved, and there's hard data to prove it.
We do this first by having an honest dialogue, and frankly, I'm really disappointed our opponents are not here to talk about where they stand. They had the questions in advance, they had time to do their homework, and be prepared to talk about their positions. That's the job every Tuesday council meeting. Now, when we do have these honest conversations, voters in Kirkland have been supportive of things like Best Starts for Kids and crisis clinics and evergreen health, where we have talked about solving regional problems regionally, but people see the benefits locally.
Now, in regards to supportive housing and services, what would you say are your top 2 funding priorities in 30 seconds?
Well, I mean, in general, our human services have to be robust, and we have to make sure that we're meeting folks' needs. As one of the things that Neil said earlier really rings true to me, and that's that, Kirkland's not going to go and build all of this housing ourselves. It's just not a thing that we are equipped to do, but we need to create the environment in which these things get done. That's our job. So making sure that those services are there to support those folks. And then I'm going to go off a little bit on a tangent and say I think safe and efficient transportation infrastructure is super important too, because those folks have to be able to get around and they have to be able to do it safely in order to live their lives.
I'm going to repeat exactly what Kurt just said. But exactly, so I think the number, 1 and 2. 1 is housing and human services. I'll want to do, if I'm a council, I'm going to do a very deep assessment of what services we're providing, how much they cost, and the level of community benefit we're getting, and then prioritizing programs accordingly. And then number 2 is making sure we have capital, more money with capital improvement programs, because a huge issue right now is being able to get from point A to point B. And so investments in things like roads, bike lanes, sidewalks, technology upgrades with the traffic lights and transit-oriented infrastructure is going to be critical.
We're in the middle of a tough 2-year budget year, and economic uncertainty means we have little new money to invest in programs. My top priority is going to be prepared to deal with turmoil at the federal level. Cuts there are going to impact our human service providers, public safety, our mobile health teams, crisis responders. I want to protect that good work we are doing and then do what we can to help the most vulnerable. From the capital budget, my priority is also transportation, connecting Kirkland through multimodal transportation and transit, including improvements on the Cross-Kirkland corridor.
Okay, so there are many, many more than 2, but I'm focused on 2 very expensive initiatives that are priorities for me. And one of them is the possibility of Kirkland funding a circulator bus route of our own. If the transit needs study that the council just commissioned shows that that is something that is needed in our community. It's going to be expensive, but I would like it to be a priority, especially if the need is evident. And then this is not related to housing, but another one is year-round all-weather aquatics at the Peter Kirk Pool, programmed by the city for residents of all ages and at every income level.
All right, thank you. In this next section, we will ask a series of short questions on various subjects. We will pose each short response question and then allow each candidate to respond before moving on to the next. Each candidate will have 5 seconds to respond to this question. So it's probably a yes and no or a yes but or something. And let's say that we'll just go in a line. So, first question. Do you support additional investments in resources for people who are unhoused and who need supportive services?
Yes, I'm open to assessing how our current investments in this space are working and would consider adjustments if needed. I do think it is essential for our safety and long-term, long-term solutions to address homelessness.
Yes, as I said before, these investments pay dividends.
Next.
Yes.
It's complicated.
Okay, next question. Do you support inclusionary zoning?
Yes, yes, I support flexible inclusionary zoning as one tool to ensure that growth includes affordable housing.
It depends. As I said, I support closing the McMansion loophole. That's inclusionary zoning. And in general, I'm in favor of funded affordable housing requirements.
Yes, as part of a multi-pronged strategy for affordable homes.
Yes.
All right, last second response. Do you support the creation of a city-funded down payment assistance program available to first-generation home buyers and low and moderate-income home buyers?
I'm open to learning more about potential city-funded assistance.
Yes, as part of a comprehensive affordable housing strategy.
In principle, yes. If we're talking about sort of design a modern-day GI Bill, yes, but I doubt that the best source of funding would be the local source of funding that is presumed in the question.
It's complicated.
Thank you. We're back to 60-second responses. So we'll move on to how we're going to deal with federal actions. Recent federal actions have cut Medicaid, which is a key funding source for services and operations in permanent supportive housing, and more cuts to homelessness response systems in the federal appropriations budget are expected. Given this environment, what local actions do you support to ensure the ongoing siting and operational sustainability of permanent support housing, emergency shelters, and homelessness-related services? You'll have 60 seconds. Mr. Arnold.
For permanent supportive housing to be successful, it needs to include the supportive services that are sustainably funded for the county amidst those federal cuts. It's a priority to be able to move Kirklanders that are living at safe parking at Tent City and in shelters into housing, and we need to make sure that those currently planned projects are successful. That's what makes the additional investments in the lightning round complicated. Local actions won't be able to fill in the Medicaid cuts, not to mention the additional need for PSH once we already opened the facility in Kirkland. Housing and Human Services competes in our general fund with parks, public safety, and other things that we do. That's what makes new city-funded assistance programs complicated. We're going to do Band-Aids of what we can, but cuts at the scale of Medicaid will only be addressed by action at the state level or changes at the federal level. So the priority really is going to be finish the work that we've done before we do other things, given the turmoil that's happening at the federal level.
Yeah, I think I can spring off of what Deputy Mayor Arnold was just talking about. I'm really proud of the work we've done in this area. So what we're going to need to continue to do is continue to have a strong continuum of care to act as a safety net when there's risk of people in our community falling through it. So it's everything in that continuum, from the homelessness outreach coordinator, which we just hired this year or last year, our homelessness action response team, which is a multi-departmental, multidisciplinary response team to homelessness. It includes our hotel voucher program, our temporary shelter, our support for temporary shelters, our support for permanent supportive housing, our support for our regional crisis response agency and our community responders there, and our mobile integrated health professionals. It includes the regional work we do with the Regional Coalition for Housing. It includes the inclusionary zoning. It includes incentive zoning, the middle housing that we've done, and also market rate housing. All of that is part of one continuum of care and one multiple pronged strategy to provide the net that we need.
I'm gonna try to avoid repeating what's already been said and just try to add to that by repeating what I've already said, which is that we really do need to be smart about how we're spending our money on this stuff, and that means making those investments that are going to save us in the long run. And when Jay said it competes with public safety funding, it really does, because if we don't do this, then we're going to have to do more public safety funding to make up for the our failures in that area. And so I'm a firm believer that we need to be tactical and strategic when it comes to how we're spending this money. I think it's a good investment to be taking care of folks and getting folks off the street. It's very expensive to have people on the street. And then as I said, in order to make our neighborhood safe and make our city safe, it also means that people need a safe place to be. So, pass it on.
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said. And the bottom line is we need more affordable housing as well. Like permanent supportive housing, yes, for sure. But I think a lot of it is also making sure we have just more housing, period. So I want to kind of repeat myself again, but really strengthening our partnerships with Arch to increase contributions to its housing trust fund, incentivizing builders so that we're expediting the permitting process. And I think another example of partnering with for-profit and non-for-profit organizations you know, an apartment complex called Polaris was funded by private-public partnership, and with the Evergreen, Inland Group, and Microsoft. And what ended up, what we are going to have is 440 units, of which 260 are going to be affordable for people that are within the AMI of 50 to 60%, and 40 units are going to be dedicated to individuals that make an AMI between 30 to 50%. So these kinds of partnerships are really critical to just have more housing, period.
Thank you. Housing is deeply linked to land use, which controls the geographic locations of housing and businesses, the types of development allowed, heights and densities, and much more. Land use also intrinsically impacts who has access to what amenities and public assets. So in 60 seconds, which specific policies or approaches do you support to ensure equitable access to housing near parks, schools, and jobs? Starting with Mr. Black.
Yeah, so three specific things. There are three specific things we're already doing in Kirkland, but I think there are three things that we really need to continue to support. One is middle housing. Another is the development agreements we do on some large major projects. And the last is park impact fees. So what middle housing does is it, through low impact to the community, it spreads workforce housing throughout our neighborhoods in a way that puts families who live in that housing close to a lot of the amenities that we love in our neighborhoods. Development agreements, I like development agreements for major projects. One of the things they allow us to do is negotiate for some of that open space, that public open space that we need. And so that could be a large project involving affordable housing or even market rate housing. And the last is park impact fees. So that is development paying for more parks, the acquisition of more parks throughout our community. So those three.
All right, well, I absolutely support policies that allow for a wide variety of housing options so more people can find something that works for them. A lot of those have already been discussed. I'm going to steal a little bit of Jay's potential thunder here and say that I also support changes to the building code that would allow us to build the types of buildings that we see in other countries that are very space efficient. They fit really well in neighborhoods. They are very livable, but they allow us to give access to more folks, and those folks will be able to live near schools and parks and all those things that folks who currently just live in a single family home in our neighborhoods enjoy access to. So big one, land use is obviously huge. It's one of the biggest levers the city has, but I also think that the other part of that equation is modernizing the building code to make sure that we can have those new building typologies don't exist. An example of that would be like single stair reform, which we can totally nerd out on later if you want to talk to me about it.
You know, I was talking to a teacher who just looked exhausted. You know, she commutes from Renton to Kirkland in rush hour. She teaches at the elementary school and teaches 30 kids. I have 2 kids, so just imagine, right? And she doesn't have a work from home policy. And you know, this is the reason why I think it's just so important for people to have housing near where they work. And it's why these policies are so important. And that is why I support mixed-use zoning, so that people can live closer to where they work, shop, and learn. For an example, we can prioritize building near transit hubs and schools while expanding green spaces through creative use of public land or public-private partnerships. We also have existing tools in Kirkland, such as the Kirkland and Kirkland County Housing Dashboard, that helps city planners evaluate where there are green spaces, where more housing is needed, where amenities are needed. And so I'll support continuing the use of those kinds of tools.
Well, providing housing with access to parks, schools, and jobs, and I would add transit, is woven throughout goals in our comprehensive plan. That's my vision for parks, people, and places in connected Kirkland. So it's important to implement that plan in all 3 tiers, including downtown, Totem Lake, and 85th at the highest tier, our neighborhood shopping centers, and then middle housing in our residential neighborhoods. To ensure equitable access, we need that multi-family housing in every neighborhood center. which will provide the benefits of the housing and also the inclusionary zoning. But we need to go from allowing things to incentivizing things, so that we're incentivizing more of the smaller homes that we've talked about, cottages, ADUs, and setting standard, as Curtis mentioned. I sit on the State Building Codes Council, and we're working on a standard for some of the issues that he has talked about, where you need to have all of the are there barriers that can be removed to make things easier. Overall, Kirkland's got a goal for parks within every walking distance of Kirkland resident. I also want to invest in areas that are underserved, like the Northeast.
Thank you. An economist who once said there are no solutions, only trade-offs. If elected, your role will require you to make difficult decisions with complex trade-offs. So how would you navigate tough policy trade-offs between things like housing affordability, supply, and neighborhood character? We'll have 60 seconds starting with Mr. Dresden.
All right, so long term, speaking economist, there's really only two ways to make something less expensive, right? You can either make more of it or you can make people want it less. And so when it comes to housing, you can't really make people want it less. It's one of those things you kind of need to survive, is shelter. In the short term, you can fudge things around a little bit, but none of those solutions are really going to be sustainable in the long term without increasing supply. So with that in mind, there are plenty of places in the city where more housing does not really involve a significant trade-off of the type that you were mentioning. There are trade-offs, obviously, but not about, nobody really cares about the mattress store that used to be at Totem Lake. Nobody's going, oh, I missed that, and instead there's all this wonderful, vibrant life, right? So there are other places in the city like that. The 85th Street Station area is one of them. We've got a Spirit Halloween there right now. But there's, in general, our neighborhood commercial centers, our urban growth centers, there's plenty of opportunities there that don't involve those trade-offs. And then there are also ways to add more housing throughout our neighborhoods. Like I said, if we update our building code, if we update our land use policies, that can be done in ways that actually enhance the character of our neighborhoods.
Yeah, balancing housing affordability, supply, and neighborhood character will require transparency and listening and clear long-term plan. I'm committed, and I know there's been a lot of discussion around this very issue, which is, oh, we're going to ruin like the character of our entire city, and it's just not true. I'm committed to preserving part of our unique neighborhood while addressing the need for more housing. We need housing, period. Especially for essential workers, families, seniors that are facing displacement. This will mean careful consideration of design, scale, location for new development without delaying the progression of just more housing. Livability and affordability do go hand in hand, and a healthy community is one where people who contribute here can afford to live here. I'll work to balance these priorities openly and thoughtfully with practical solutions that can help Kirkland grow in the way that benefits everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone.
While you ask about trade-offs, I believe we can have livable, unique neighborhoods and address housing affordability and supply. Each of our neighborhoods has that unique favorite place, that local restaurant that we love, and grocery stores and the local places. As those redevelop and we add more housing to make our neighborhood centers mixed use, we're adding customers. And so those are complementary to preserving those favorite local businesses and our grocery stores. They make the neighborhood stronger and more vibrant. And in residential neighborhoods, as we go do this, the whole point of middle housing is it integrates well. I've been on middle housing tours where I didn't even know this was something was a duplex if it hadn't been on the tour. Often I get feedback in the form of vote no. Well, my approach is to listen to all voices and find out what that core is of the vote no sentiment. See if I can make changes and address concerns I've heard to get to yes. That's the trade-offs that I do.
I think this question, you're going to hear me say some similar things to what you've heard from the others, and I think this question sort of brings home the fact that You want to elect people who can see past the first blush difficult trade-off and look through that to the next level, to the actual opportunities with vision and with some thoughtfulness. Because a lot of the issues we face in government, they do look initially like really tough trade-offs. But the best people in our community, the best people in these seats are the ones who can appreciate that there might be trade-offs but see the opportunity. You've heard that from some of my colleagues. I think we can have sufficient homes and a greater mix of housing types, including a mix of smaller, more affordable homes, while maintaining our quality of life, while strengthening our community, if we do it through thoughtful planning, and that includes concurrent investments in improved infrastructure, and that includes multimodal mobility, it includes open spaces and parks, and it includes school capacity.
All right, thank you. As we conclude our event, we want to thank all of the candidates for taking the time to share their perspectives on these important issues around belonging, access, and affordable housing. Before we end, we'd like to provide one last opportunity for the candidates to share an open-ended response. They'll have 90 seconds to sum up their vision for the city and share any final reflections about why you think voters should support you for city council, starting with Mrs. Payne.
Yeah, first I really want to thank you all for organizing this event. These are such important topics, so really thank you. And after speaking to a number of voters and members of the community, I've come to realize that all most people want to achieve at the end of the day is a good, healthy cost of life. And the decisions the city council makes does truly impact your day-to-day life. And that is why the decision on who you plan to vote for is so critical. These decisions will impact open space, green spaces, how strong our infrastructure is, that people can get from point A to point B, how affordable our housing is going to be so that seniors that have invested so much in our community, people that are working here and can actually be able to live here, how our tax dollars are going to be managed, and finally how safe our beautiful city is going to be. And the bottom line is I understand that serving does start with listening. And part of listening is showing up. Sadly, my opponent decided that these issues were not important enough to show up to this event, nor the same event that was planned during the primary. I will show up, and I have shown up to each and every forum that I have been requested to attend. I have shown up, and I will continue to show up, because I do think it is super important to hear all sides of the issue, so that when I'm making decisions, I'm truly making informed decisions. I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Kirkland has maintained its quality of life through wise investments, thoughtful planning for the future, regional engagement, and an involved community. And this is an important part of an involved community. Kirkland was the jewel of the East Side when I first moved here 35 years ago and remains so today. And I'm proud of what we have accomplished with investments in parks and people and places. Our work in Kirkland on affordable housing well before it was required by the state. Our strategic approach to public safety, being a leader in sustainability, and our work to defend our values as a safe, welcoming, inclusive community. Having strong leaders like the ones, all four of us, is going to be incredibly important as we have federal opposition to these values and challenges to bedrock principles like freedom of speech, equal protection of the law, innocent until proven guilty. I've been a proven leader in navigating these challenges, and we've had consistent follow-up. Our commitment going back to our first safe, welcoming resolution in 2017. Now, I'm excited about the opportunities Kirkland has with continued leadership, nonstop progress on the plans that we have and the investments we're making and the potential for emerging technologies. I ask for your vote to continue this important work. You can learn more at votejarnold.com. Thank you.
Well, I want to add my voice to those who thank you for being here. We need thoughtful, engaged, caring people, both in those chairs and also in these chairs. I have an analogy that I use, and it reminds us of our connectedness as Kirkland neighbors. By choosing Kirkland, we all boarded a plane. That plane was first built in the 1890s. Ever since, we've been flying that plane while building it and repairing it, decade after decade, keeping it in the air. In some eras, there wasn't much planning. In recent decades, we've done a lot better. But we're still renovating and retrofitting a plane while flying it. That means pieces sometimes break and they need repair. It means we see ways to fly faster or straighter, but it requires us to make an upgrade. And it means those of us in row 17, metaphorically speaking, have to stand a while our seats are being replaced. And that can really stink. But we know this is our journey together. And none of it is a reason to let the incivility that we see out there infect us here. Cities are made up of humans, so they aren't perfect, but I'm incredibly proud of what we've accomplished in my 6 years on the council. We've improved public safety, we've lowered crime, we've innovated in behavioral health, and though challenging, we've worked together this last year to develop a shared vision for a healthy, complete community. That includes planning for the infrastructure, systems, and programs needed to keep us flying straight and living our best lives. Our city is competent, it's collaborative, it's caring. Let's keep investing in that, and I humbly wish for your vote. Thanks.
So I do think it's notable that all four of the other candidates didn't show up here tonight for one reason or another. But as Schultz said earlier, one thing I can tell you is that I will show up because I do want to listen to what you have to say, and because showing up is step number one. My vision is a Kirkland that works for everyone. At this point, I've lost count of the number of doors that I've knocked on where the person answering the door told me they were getting ready to move away from Kirkland because they couldn't afford it here anymore. Some of them were working in their gardens. Some of them were literally cleaning out their apartments, and all their stuff was in boxes, and they were running a vacuum when I knocked on the door. But even people who own their homes outright are paying the high cost of housing every day, right? You're paying it in your property taxes, the cost of coffee, the cost of childcare, the cost of groceries. Everything is more expensive when a basic requirement like shelter is more expensive. So, there are those, I love your airplane analogy. There are those that would like to take Kirkland backward. They want to say no to the progress. They want to say no to the upgrade of row 17. But I think we do have to be the city that says yes. We have to be the city that says yes to the innovative housing solutions so that everyone can afford to live here. Yes to expanding our parks and our schools and our jobs. And yes to building a vibrant and inclusive and forward-thinking community that works for everyone. So the choice in this election is between looking back or moving forward. I'm Kurt. I'm asking for your vote. Let's move forward. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all. How about a round of applause for the candidates? And thank you to all of you who showed up today, to our event organizers, and to Mediterranean Kitchen for providing tonight's food. Remember that we encourage you to leave any feedback at the QR code on the registration, right here on the table. And a reminder that early voting starts. The screen. Early voting starts next week, October 17th. Election date is November 4th, and please make sure your voice is heard. Thank you all. Have a good night. I'm sure you can chat with the candidates for a bit and enjoy some more food.